Mmm. Classic Vietnamese street food, also found in other countries surrounding it as far south as the Philippines and in neighboring countries like Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand. I'm really excited about this one, so let's get started. Okay, I'm going to add my dry ingredients into this bowl just to get them out of the way. I have ice water that will activate it into a batter, but this is rice flour, cornstarch, some turmeric, and ground white pepper. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, and we're gonna hold on our ice water, which we're gonna whisk and fold into a batter, which starts with tiny little dried shrimp. These will get all fried and crispy. These are small, salted little shrimp. To that, I'm going to add some scallion and some chili, along with julienne, sweet potatoes, and shrimp. The knife that I have selected to do this is this Nakiri. It's a blunt nose chef knife. It's very sturdy, and when I choke up on it, if you'll notice with this knife, it's got the same thickness all the way across. So it's super, super stable. I am cutting by hand a very hard, crispy sweet potato. I don't want the knife to turn or slip. I want to use this all-purpose vegetable knife. That's what this knife is so good for. So first things first, I want to put some scallions into our batter. I am putting the nose of my knife on the board and holding my finger in the traditional claw pattern with my thumb back, my knuckles as my guide, and this finger tucked way back. I want all of that. It's gonna be delicious in these fritters. I have 2 red Thai chilies that are very spicy. I'm actually gonna use those. I'm gonna put those into the batter as well. If you can't find fresh Thai chilies, there's always a Serrano chili available in every single supermarket in America. And they are beautifully stunning and have about the same heat. First thing that I wanna do, and yes, these are washed and dried, and I like the skin on them because I love the flavor of the fried skin. Cutting through something that's 5 inches long, top to bottom, is more dangerous than cutting something that's 2.5 inches. So I am going to cut this in, I don't know, that looks like a pretty good 1/8 of an inch slice. It's small for a baton. It's at the outer edge of thickness to be a julienne. And then what we want to do is we want to make sure that we don't have discoloration and starch issues. I'm gonna put them right into ice water to firm up. And this, to me, for this fritter is sort of the perfect length and size. And I love using this knife because it is uniform in size. And if you notice, I'm pushing straight down. I can get the identical cut every time. And this is so stable, both because of my knife choice and the way I've portioned the pieces of sweet potato that I'm cutting. Sweet potatoes are starchy and they have sugars in them. Ice water gets them nice and crispy. It allows them to fry better. And it also gets rid of any excess starch. We have plenty of starch right here with the rice flour and cornstarch. Let's get to work on these. Shrimp. This shrimp is really big. This is a U16. Under 16 to a pound, right? I don't want to put whole shrimp to a fritter. Just how are you going to eat that? I'm going to cut the head off so that they're in the fritter, and then I'm going to devein them and cut those in half, discarding the tail and collar, which are big on this one, and let the rest of that shell sort of fry up in the fritter and be yummy and crispy. First thing that I want to do is take off the eyes and the head. It's got a lot of spiky pieces here. I don't want someone to bite into that. All the head fat and the yummy stuff is in there. So I want this piece to go into my fritter, and I'm just gonna repeat that with everything. I'm gonna use this same knife because it's perfect for it, nice and safe. Then this section has both meat on one side and all of that incredible head fat. That's gonna be the best bite on the fritter. So now I have 6 or 7 shrimp and I need to peel and devein them. It's a really, really simple job. I start around one side, always going from leg side first. Then the thickest piece of shell that's on the shrimp is this collar right here. It's thicker than the other pieces of shell here. The tail is very feathery. And so I just have to be very intentional. And let's see if these will pee-wee out. They do. Just give them a little jiggle and you'll get that beautiful tail meat. And at this point, all I need to do is make a cut around there. And you can see I even got the vein to come all the way out. And if you pull straight, you will get all of that objectionable piece. There's another way to do this, equally as preferable. Slide one piece of your kitchen shears in between the flesh and the shell and just peel. Super, super easy just to spread this and take that vein out. Why is that black vein a sign of quality? Because it shows me that this shrimp was really eating food. And now, I'm just gonna gently chop these because they are big meats. We're gonna add this to this mixture, give those a toss so they don't stick together. All right, I wanna put my large julienne of potato onto a towel to drip dry. It also allows me to shake away any ice cubes that are out there. And all I want to do is sort of gather this up into a little pyramid a couple times. And what's going to fall to the bottom? Water and ice cubes. I want to combine my starches and my dry seasonings evenly. And then I have this icy cold water. I'm not making Swedish pancakes. I don't want it too thin. What we do is you just combine this. Now, we just want this batter to be the glue that holds this together. So I'm just gonna put the whole kit and caboodle in there. You wanna make sure that your batter and your ingredients are used in proportion to each other. And I'm just gonna slide that baby in. I just wanna make sure I get enough shrimp and batter and all those other goodies on this one. I will fry 3 at a time. We do not agitate them. Little pieces that fly off are fine. These will take about 4 or 5 minutes to cook. They'll come out in little clumps. There'll be lots of little extra crispy bits. They're great for you to snack on. Now, we cook with our ears as much as any other sense. The quieting in that oil is the fact that moisture, which is what's making all that bubbling noise, is 75, 80% evaporated. So as it quiets down is your sign that these are probably ready to come out. Meanwhile, let me take a standard knife, never cut into your hand, rotate this. These beautiful big outer leaves are the ones that I want. Shiso leaves. All I do is I cluster these around. I don't want you to yank out a big leaf. And I'm just gonna do a casual 1/8 of an inch chiffonade. This might be my favorite herb, Thai basil. And I am just going to cut these into chiffonade by rolling them. And again, same thing. And I'm actually gonna leave these mint sprigs whole and let people take little tips of mint. As you can see here, we have batter, we have head, we have little bits of shrimp, chili, and scallion. I want people to take a little bit of Thai basil, a little bit of shiso, tuck some scallion inside there, take some mint and put that in there. And then we'll put them all out on a tray and allow people to help themselves to the nuoc cham that we made earlier. I do like to put a little spoon out in people's nuoc cham so they can pour it on, and as they're eating it, it's sloppy and wonderful, and they can dip pieces in. This sweet potato and shrimp fritter is going to be one of your family favorites for a long time to come. The reason we love using proper technique and the right knife in tandem together, your recipes will turn out better, it's safer, and your food's gonna taste better. I'm Andrew Zimmern. Oh, wow. Behold the mighty shrimp and my tiny little 2.5-inch beak's nose paring knife. Between these two, I'm gonna show you how to clean and devein shrimp, and then I'm gonna cook them 2 ways for you. You ready? Let's go. Today we're gonna make japchae, and I'm gonna do it with these beautiful large shrimp. So first thing that I wanna do is combine my ingredients for different sauces. This is my cooking sauce: soy sauce, some light brown sugar, some black pepper, some rice wine, some sesame oil, and some mirin. Add some chilies. If you break them up, it'll turn the dish spicy. If you leave them whole, it'll keep it just delicately warm. Microplane, a couple cloves of garlic. Perfect. Bowl that my shrimp are gonna go into. Sesame oil, sake, and mirin. More garlic. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt. Okay, so we have these beautiful U15 shrimp, and I just start peeling on one side. And then when I get to this point and I have the very last piece of shell cracked around the top towards the tails, I give a gentle shake here. That's what I'm left with. And look at the beautiful fan of all of that shrimp. All right, that's enough for this dish. Take a sharp knife, I love this beak nose pear, and just run it gently down the entire length of what you would generally think of as the back of the shrimp. That vein is the digestive tract of the shrimp that can turn your food bitter. And sometimes there's even very small pieces of sand or shell, especially if they're wild caught. And you can see here, we have one whose entire length goes all the way up into the top. I just gently pull and take it out of there. It's why I make the cut all the way up to that last joint. It's so easy when I'm cutting something that's curved to use this beak's nose parer. It's also very short. I have so much control because I want to make a shallow cut, just a 1/16 of an inch, just enough to break the skin so I can pull the vein out. But I love a standard parer because a beak nose parer can't do this. I want to bisect my shrimp lengthwise. I'm just going to drop them in our marinade. I have my 2 fingers on the fat part of the shrimp. As I move this paring knife across towards the back half of the shrimp, the tail, I switch my hand to there. So watch, I go through and then I switch my opposing hand so that I get 2 equal parts of shrimp. break my eggs. For a noodle dish like this, I want streaks of white and yolk. All right, time to process our vegetables. The Nakiri does a fantastic job on all vegetables, but I'm also going to use the classic vegetable cleaver. You can cook entire meals using just this knife. First thing that I want to do is I want to cut a little bit of garnish to set aside. And then I'm just going to do 1/2-inch lengths at an angle. I'm going to cook some shiitake mushrooms in this japchae. And I'm just using a classic push cut here for my mushrooms. Red pepper. Just gonna cut that into longish strips because these are gonna soften and mimic the shape of the noodles. Even with a cleaver, I can execute thin threads of carrots called allumettes. I cut one side off, stack 5 of these planks that I've just cut up. Just very carefully, you're in no rush. Cabbage. You can also see at this point what a colorful dish japchae is. All right, sweet potato noodle. So this is boiling. We'll let that go for a couple minutes. First thing up, our omelet. Carrots next. Went to all the trouble of cutting your vegetables so perfectly. We're gonna saute each of our vegetables separately. We don't wanna cook them together because I really want the integrity of each vegetable to stand out. And I'm just gonna cut this omelet in thin strips. That way it's gonna incorporate into the noodle dish. I'm gonna drain these noodles. Last but not least, our shrimp. That liquid needs to cook off a little bit before we get a sear on a lot of this. You could hear the spatter when they hit. So a couple of pieces that went right in the middle have a really nice little sear on them. In goes my sweet potato noodles. When it gets to look about like that, and I just keep turning it. Last but not least, a teaspoon of sesame seed. Shall we see how we did? Oh, wow. Flavors are balanced. I'm still getting the crunch from little bits of vegetable. That is something your whole family is gonna love. Big shrimp, small Japanese appetizer. Perfect combination. Shrimp tsukune dipped in cured egg yolks that's absolutely gonna curl your toes. Let's get to it. First thing I wanna do is make my tare, which is my liquid seasoning. I put in my soy sauce, my dashi, my sake and mirin, and my brown sugar. So I'm gonna bring this to a simmer and then lower the heat to just see a couple of bubbles. And we're gonna reduce it low and slow until it's nice and syrupy. So let's make the shrimp meatballs. I've cleaned the shrimp the same way that I showed you a couple of minutes ago, but I wanted to show you something alternate. Should make so many different kitchen shears. These small ones have a very slender tip, but they're also only about 1.5 inches long. And they're ideal for just putting into one side of the shrimp shell all the way up to the top. Some people like to do it on 2 sides. And then the shrimp shell just comes right off the entire thing in one fell swoop. This is the perfect little scissor for this kind of work. So, large bowl, sesame oil, a little bit of white or blonde miso. These are shiso leaves, also called perilla. So in goes about a half cup of shiso. Scallions. I'm going to bisect each one very, very carefully. I held on to the tops and didn't split them, just to get a few tablespoons of fresh scallion. And then I'm just gonna mince these as thin as I can, because these are going into our meatballs. My Kazahana utility knife feels beautiful in my hand. I can choke up on it like a paring knife if I want to. And I'm just going to cut all these shrimp in half. Just so much easier to chop. It's just cut across this pile a couple times. I just want to get this chopped up to the point that I can use two knives and really begin to annihilate this into a paste. It's going to have much better texture when we eat it than a conventional food processor. This is still going to have some little studs of shrimp. So this is another dish where the knife work is kind of crucial. Oh, perfect. Okay. Put that all in there. Best tool in the world, your hands. Wet hands. Roll a ball. And then just turn them to a little oval. These are going to be so flavorful. Our tare is coming along. So, a clean, well-oiled grill. We're gonna make sure that the skewers go right down the middle of this. And if you notice, I've kept my wood away from the open fire. So this is gonna take 7 minutes, 3.5 minutes on each side. I've brushed them a couple times on the grill with the tare, and then I just drizzled a little on at the end so to get a different tare flavor, because the stuff that was brushed on there actually cooks and caramelizes a little bit. And we're dipping it into egg yolk. I put them into a soy sauce and sugar mixture and let them sit 14 hours. They're really jammy. Just one of my favorite dishes anywhere. And watch what happens when I dunk my tsukune into that cured egg yolk. See how it breaks, but it's jammy on the outside? Salty, sweet and spicy. And that shiso is the best part of the whole thing, I'm telling you. I want you to make this so badly, just so I can see all of your reactions on social when you tell me that your family just gobbled these up. Remember, all of our recipes and our sub-recipes are at andrewzimmern.com. Would you like to make this delicious fried shrimp appetizer for your holiday celebration, whether it's Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, anytime company are coming over that you'd like to serve a fun, crispy shrimp dish? Maybe you just want to serve them to yourself on a Sunday afternoon in front of the game. By all means, do it, but by all means, stick around because I want to show you how to make them. They're delicious. First thing we're gonna do is make our shrimp force meat, the stuffing inside the whole shrimp. Then we're gonna make our batter, then we're off to the races. I also want to make a dipping sauce, and one of my favorites for these is just a little bit of apricot preserve and a little bit of Asian, Chinese or Japanese mustard. Korean hot mustard will do as well. I buy them in dried form and rehydrate them. We'll get to that at the very end. Anyway, on to the shrimp. Microplane, garlic. I just want to pass this clove through. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this little end of young ginger. Got this at the Asian market. The skin is almost translucent. It's not brown and dry and papery. And when it's like that, you can literally just grate the entire thing in there except for the ends. All right, you can just throw away the end. And I usually like to go about 1.5 or 2 to 1 ginger to garlic. I want to put a little bit of minced cilantro. If you're not a cilantro lover, you can skip this step. Just a few tablespoons, coarsely chopped. And then I want to make sure that I have my scallions. Very thinly sliced scallion greens. And I don't know, I mean, can you have enough scallion and shrimp when you're making a force meat from shrimp? I mean, scallions and shrimp just go together so well, just the best. Anyway, those are ingredients, 4 of them, that I have on hand always, because I cook a lot of Asian food. Dark soy sauce. It's thicker and a little saltier, and it's when you want a lot of soy sauce flavor without adding a lot of liquid. So I don't know what that was, maybe 1/2 teaspoon, 3/4 of a teaspoon. Cornstarch, not much, you know, maybe a teaspoon or so, just to hold the liquid inside. And then I've got my shrimp. And what I'm gonna do with them is I'm just gonna cut them in half, across the waist. They're peeled and deveined. And you're probably saying, well, why are you cutting them in half? You're gonna make a paste out of these on your cutting board. And the answer is yes, I am. But it's so much easier to do when these shrimp are already cut in half. Then I can come across them and I don't have to worry about chunky pieces because they're already sliced pretty thin. Now, do I ever use a food processor for this? You bet I do, but only when I'm making like 60 or 80 of them, or making a few pounds of a forced meat for shrimp dumplings or something. If I'm just making 12, 20 pieces for Christmas Eve at my house, and that is about a cup of very well minced shrimp, almost to a paste, but not quite. And then that goes into my bowl with all of those other ingredients, like so. And I'm just gonna mix this together. Don't be freaked out by the fact that that dark soy is very dark, and it turns your mixture into something that looks almost like a mushroom. But don't worry, it's gonna be beautiful and pink inside of our fried shrimp. You know, some people always ask me, do you ever put some hot chili in and make this spicy? And the answer is no. I'll add spice to the batter if I want to the dipping sauce, or make a spicy dipping sauce. But I let this stay nice and trim. I really want the scallion flavor to be very, very, very dominant in there. So there we go. There's that. I have all of these other shrimp peeled and deveined. And what I want to do here is I find the place right down the center where I took the vein out, and I put a small knife right through. And then I just come down. I don't want to go all the way through, right? So all I've done is created an area that I can stuff with my force meat, put a nice ball of stuffing in there where my finger is, and then dip it in my batter and deep fry it. And I have these wonderful shrimp balls that will sit on the plate like this. I know, it's amazing. So I'm gonna do this one more time for you. Right near the top. And yes, do you need a sharp paring knife? You bet you do. And just open it up. And I'm just gonna repeat. See you in a minute. All right, batter, bowl, 1 cup all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup milk. We whisk the whole thing together. 1/2 cup ice water, and yes, I usually let that sit with the ice in it, and when I whisk it, the rest of those cubes will melt, but it keeps my batter very, 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 very cold. Baking powder, not baking soda, baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon. And a little bit of salt, also about a 1/4 teaspoon. And I just whisk it. And yes, I whisk it with the ice cubes in there. And I don't need to over whisk. That ice, nice and cold, keeps those gluten strands from forming. Right there, we're gonna let that sit to the side. We have our force meat. Let me make sure that my oil getting nice and hot over there. It is. And all I'm gonna do is take some of my shrimp, open it up, put that force meat in just like that. So it's a nice surprise. And then I usually let them sit with the stuffing facing up. And like with most things, one of the only mistakes that you can make with this dish is overstuffing, right? I mean, it's shrimp on shrimp. You don't need to worry about it sticking. There's just so much glucosamine, chondroitin, all of those sticky proteins in shrimp that stuffing will stay right where you want it after you've let it sit there for a couple of minutes. Highly flavored with that ginger and garlic. It's just such a nice bite. Again, I'll move this closer so you can see it. And you just push down there and seal it, and I'll let that sort of, I want to see it come through the backside where that little hole is. Now, a lot of people say to me, what do you do if you cut through the end? And instead of it staying attached, by the way, on these bigger shrimp, obviously, you put more stuffing. It's just going to be a bigger 2-biter. Well, I'm going to show you what to do if you cut all the way through. It's a total non-answer. You just curl those beautiful cut pieces of shrimp around instead of through. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. I just want to get a little further along. I have 4 or 5 more of these. All right, so let's say when you're butchering your shrimp, by accident, you cut all the way through and it's completely split in half. No problem. gather a little ball of the shrimp stuffing mixture and just curl the shrimp around it. Batter it and fry it. Super simple. And if you have any shrimp left over, I have like half of one's worth. Just pat it together and fry it and eat it like a little snack-a-doodle for yourself, right? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. We've set up a little dredging station here. Super, super simple. Shrimp goes in. Put some sesame seeds on there. And let it go in to the batter. Could not be easier. And I'm just frying in a little pot, and I'm still able to get 6 of them at a time in there, so I can do 2 batches. I'm gonna just rotate them for even cooking, but look at how crisp and brittle those are. You can sort of see the ones that went in there first. Super crunchy, crispy. And now I can do my next 6. All right, so I use S&B brand, and I just mix, a teaspoon or 2 of the dried powder with warm water and let it sit for 20 minutes, whisking it together till it's nice and strong and aromatic. And then I mix it, I don't know, 2 to 1 with apricot preserves. I like it nice and mustardy. Strong and mustardy, but I want that sweetness from the apricot preserves. And I don't want to use some sort of like fake sweet and sour sauce. And I have found that this mixture is so good. And I just mix it in one bowl and serve it in another already combined. And just slide a little bit of green onion onto the top for a little garnish. And that is it. Those gorgeous stuffed fantail shrimp that remind me so much of dining out with my parents in Chinese restaurants when I was a kid, but so easy to put together, so delicious, so crispy. You just gotta serve them hot out of the fryer. Don't let them sit. Don't cook them before company arrives. Just cook them and serve them and let people, it's a burn your fingers type of dish. The key here is a cold batter, and there you have it. Absolutely delicious and wonderful. And how do these taste? Sweet, crispy, shrimpy fried goodness. So I have little tiny portions of spot prawn pasta with sea urchin. And you know that Luca and Clemmy know good food when they see it.
I think they're going to be pretty eager. Okay. Hey, leave your brothers alone. She scarfed down both of them. Luca, she dove in there and grabbed yours. Oh my God. Clemmy Zimmern, as I live and breathe. Don't worry, Luca, I'm going to give you some.
Wondering what's for dinner this week? How about this incredible California spot prawn pasta? Yes, you can do it with shrimp. It's crowned with a little bit of sea urchin. Takes you about an hour, start to finish. It's made with angel hair. And is it good? I think you can eat this every night you're not throwing some lamb chops on the grill. Want me to show you how to make it? Ready, set, go. So you can't make pasta this fantastic without impeccable seafood. And I have these gorgeous spot prawns from an epically well-managed fishery in the Northern Pacific off the coast of the United States. You can see with these red spots, they have, well, red spot prawns. They have a little white dot there and they have a white dot there and it repeats on the other side. That's why they're called spot prawns. These ones are absolutely gorgeous. How can we tell? Number one, the skin is nice and red. If they're aged or they've been improperly handled, they turn blackish, which is not good. And the real telltale sign, no melanosis of any kind that's turning the little fins black as well. But when you look at those fins, you can actually see, hard for me to get the camera to focus, those tiny little hairs. They're so fresh, they still have their feathering on their tails. And they smell just like the ocean. I would eat this raw, and in fact, we're really not gonna cook the tails very much at all, but we are gonna make an incredible sauce using the heads and the shells. So the very first thing that I wanna do, and by the way, this is the same spot prawn in Japanese restaurants is called ama-ebi, right? You may recognize the head because oftentimes they serve that to you as a second course, deep fried. A quick twist of the head and take this, place it in your bowl. I've got a whole bunch I've already done already. Then take a scissor and just place it inside the top of that shell and just cut. I'm using a nice poultry shear because they're easy to take apart and clean. And then all I do, and I'm kind of doing this in an odd way so that you can see it, is I'm just peeling back the shell and popping the meat out. They're so easy to clean because the shell on this shrimp is really, really, really firm, crisp, like a nice little piece of armor. And then all I do is I just grab onto these little tails and just pop that shrimp out. Now, or spot prawn out. This entire piece of shell goes into my bowl because that's gonna be the foundation of our sauce. And I always love pee-weeing the shrimp, which is jiggling those tail feathers so I can extract all of the meat from that. And if you notice, because I use the scissor, I split these open, no vein in there, all clean. If you see a vein running down there, simply remove it. One more time just to show you. Twist the head, put the head in the bowl. Take the scissor, run it down the length of the top or the back, however you'd like to call it, of the spot prawn. Peel away both sides and pop that tail meat out with your other fingers. It just slides right out. And then holding on to those little tail feathers, just jiggle that shrimp so you can extract all of it. Drop the shell in one bowl, take the meats and place it in another. I've got about 2 cups of those tail meats in here. We'll deal with those in a little while. Now we have to go to the stove and we've got to start making our sauce with these heads and shells. I love using something wok or bowl shaped for this because I can do everything all in one pan. All you do is put a medium heat underneath that Take some nice olive oil. We're gonna have plenty of butter in this later, so I just need a tablespoon or two of olive oil. Get it nice, aromatic, and hot. We wanna get a nice sear on our shells when they hit that oil. Here's a big bowl of spot prawn heads and spot prawn shells from the bodies. I can smell that. That is just, the smell of that hitting the olive oil is not to be believed. And we're just gonna cook those and get a nice sear on all sides. We do not want to scorch it. We want to use a medium heat. We don't want to use a high heat because we don't want to burn this and put a bitter taste in our sauce. Look at that nice sear we have on that side that was in contact with the bottom of the pan. Got a nice sear on those. And that's important. That first sear is important because no matter what these look like later on, the flavor of that sear is going to be in that pot. So, a little bit of crushed pepper, black peppercorns, a few smashed garlic cloves, too. Celery, carrot, and onion. Give that a nice little stir. And we're gonna let that cook until our onion starts to wilt. When your onions get glassy, add about a cup of really good wine. Let that cook and let it reduce by about half. Now, with some sauces and with some dishes, I like to caramelize my tomato paste. But with this dish, when I'm working with shrimp heads or spot prawn heads or crab, I have found that sometimes I can get some bitter flavors in there if I'm not careful. And I have found there's really not that much of a difference flavor-wise between putting a few tablespoons of tomato paste in now when my wine is reducing or whether I caramelize it with my veg. So I put it in now and we'll get that nice tomato flavor in there. We're also going to add some pureed tomatoes in a couple of minutes, but more about that in a second. The wine has just about gone down by half. And I'm going to add a few cups of a really nice, maybe about a cup and a half, 2 cups of a really nice homemade fish broth. Now, you can use fish stock. I happen to love making fish broth and using that as a basis for what I'm working with here for this sauce. And the reason is I get so much depth of flavor. It also means that and you shouldn't cook shrimp heads for very long because it can turn what's going to be a shrimp sauce iodine-y in flavor. You want to cook this for about 25 minutes, maybe half an hour, something like that, before we puree it. And if I'm going to do that, I want to make sure that the liquids that I put in there have big flavors already. Wine and that really nice fish broth. You can always buy fish broth at a seafood store. There are some really good boxed versions, believe it or not, these days. You can use clam juice and use it with a little bit of fish broth. But I tell you, whenever I buy snapper, bass, other white-fleshed fish, halibut, I always save the bones or the head, or just ask your fishmonger. They may even give you one, and make some stock from it. You'll have a couple quarts in your freezer to use when you're working with a sauce like this. And I'm just going to stir my tomato paste in there. And I am going to simmer this for about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to put a lid on it and I'm going to cook it for a little while longer. But before I put the lid on it, I'm just gonna add 6 ounces or so, almost a full cup of tomato puree. It's gonna make this really, really, really rich, and it's gonna make it a sauce that has enough body when I strain out all those pureed shrimp heads, which is eventually what we're gonna start doing. Don't waste any tomato puree that's left behind. Just stir it around in your cup. Pour that down in there. We'll let that come to a nice boil, and then we'll put a lid on it. Okay, we're at a nice simmer, and I'm gonna put my lid on it. I do wanna remind you that it is the heads that give us all of the flavor for this sauce. The shells and the heads of shrimp and prawns have most of the flavor in them. And the heads have all the head fat. And if you squeeze these, you can see right there, you can actually see that head fat that's in there. It's beautiful and red and oily with some creamy parts to it as well. We're gonna let all those flavors cook out into this liquid, and I'm covering it so that I really get some nice extraction by heat. Then we're gonna extract it a second way. We're gonna puree this mixture, strain it, put it back into this pan, and then we're gonna reduce it a little more with our pasta in there to make our sauce. After 25, 30 minutes, that is perfect. And I can smell that there's absolutely nothing in there that's gonna give off a bitter flavor. So I just turn off the heat, and then we're gonna puree this, we're gonna strain this, and we're gonna put it back into this pot to let it reduce a little bit. If you know me, you know I love my immersion wand, my blending stick. Turn it on and let it rip. So we take our puree and we take it out of the pot. We place a strainer in there, and we put it all back in there. Now, when it comes to purees, you don't want this all turned into mush. Why? Because not only will you get so many microparticles of stuff in there, but it becomes really, really, really unwieldy. I see so many people struggling with this, really kind of over pureeing in a sense. Broken up like this, nicely broken up, is pretty much exactly what I like. Remember, I have eyes, I have other organs and stuff like that in there. If you puree it into essentially a smooth, homogeneous paste, not only is it difficult to pass, but it has a tendency to get bitter. So all I do is take a spatula and press down on my solids. Makes it so much easier when I don't have a homogeneous paste. I'm doing this late at night and I can't talk. Even the dogs know it. Pressing down on the solids is probably the most important part of the job, because you really want to extract every bit of juice in there. And I find that folding it over a couple times really, really helps. The other thing that helps is making sure you go along the bottom of your strainer and getting all of those lovely little textured bits of vegetable and prawn head that you can. I actually have behind me, and I really should get it, I have this giant circular weight that I could push down on there, but then you're not going to make it, because you're going to say, well, I don't have one of those, so this is too hard. So I want to show you how easy this is just with your immersion wand and pull all of that luscious liquid out of it. Now remember, the only liquid that went in there was a cup of wine and about a cup and a half of stock. And look at that beautiful, beautiful sauce. But more importantly, look at the body. It's viscous. It's about the texture of oil. So it's not going to take very long to reduce. So there is that beautiful, beautiful sauce, or the beginnings of it. And I'm just going to taste it. Oh, sweet. It's like biting into a spot prawn. It's absolutely perfect. Not too vegetal. Perfectly balanced. Really, really deeply tastes of spot prawn, which is what we were after the entire time, right? Now, we're gonna season it while it reduces. I have a low heat underneath there. It should come to a simmer fairly soon. I'm just gonna put some basil leaves in there. I'm gonna put a little bit of parsley. I happen to love the bitterness that parsley gives to a sauce like this. I'm not gonna season it with salt until the very end, because as this reduces, because it was made with the spot prawn shells and heads, it's gonna get a little saltier naturally, right? So we're just gonna let that come to a simmer, maybe reduce by 10-15%. And we're gonna add our barely cooked pasta to that. What do I mean by that? I'm gonna take some angel hair, and I'm going to put the angel hair into this pot of boiling water for about 60 seconds, just so that I can fold it. And then I'm gonna cook it in that spot prawn broth. What's that gonna do? The starch from the pasta is gonna thicken the spot prawn broth, and the spot prawn broth is gonna go in to those pasta noodles. And I'm going to season it with these stunning spot prawns, the meats, a little bit of shallot and a little more parsley. Then we're gonna plate it up, and I have a little surprise for how we're gonna garnish this thing. All right, water, salt. We want that water to taste like seawater. In a couple minutes, that's gonna start boiling. We're gonna blanch our pasta in it, and then we're gonna put it into our simmering spot prawn broth to let it finish cooking. Water is boiling, and in goes my angel hair. And as you can see over here, I've changed burners. I have my sauce just simmering over there. It's just been a couple of minutes. It's literally been 30 seconds. You could break these noodles if you want. I'm just putting them into this incredible liquid here. And we're actually gonna cook it all in there. I have about 3/4 of a pound in there. Make a couple of portions. An angel hair usually takes about 4 minutes to make, but it's gonna make this sauce nice and starchy and cling onto there. And we're reducing the sauce by volume because it's simmering. The liquid is being absorbed by the angel hair. And at the same time, the starch is thickening it. So we have like 3 things happening at the same time. The pasta is still way too al dente to eat, but I'm gonna add my shallots. Why am I adding the shallots now? They'll be soft in 45 seconds. I love the flavor of shallots. And I love the flavor of a just cooked shallot in this. And the last thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna add our spot prawns. Remember I said, a lot of you know this as ama-ebi, the Japanese sweet shrimp? We're gonna put them in there and just let the heat of the pasta cook them. I'm gonna add a tablespoon or 2 of butter. Just make this sauce a little elegant. Let that butter emulsify. The one thing every time I teach someone how to make this at my house or in a cooking class that sort of boggles everyone's mind is how we can go from having, 2 cups plus of this liquid, and just by cooking our angel hair in there, guess what? That sauce is tight around there. I'm gonna season this. Our pasta water is seasoned. Now it's time to season the dish itself. Throw in some more parsley. And then, because this only has another minute or 2 to cook, those shrimp are literally cooking just by the ambient heat of sitting in the warm sauce. I've turned this down to low. And we taste the noodle. It needs to cook for another minute or so. So I'm gonna add about 3 ounces of the starchy pasta water. Just let the pasta absorb that pasta water, which is also nice and starchy. Shrimp are cooked, pasta is perfectly tender. Just a few drops of lemon in there. This is perfect. Now we really are gonna plate. So we're gonna present this beautifully. I mean, we're using expensive ingredients after all. So all I like to do is take some pasta, put it on my fork, put it in a ladle or spoon, and give it a twirl. It's just like your mom taught you to do it as a kid with spaghetti. But that way it sits up nice and high, right? Again, just place it into the base of the ladle and turn. Just keep rotating and just pull that fork out. Then what we want to do is put a couple of shrimp, which, by the way, why do I keep calling them shrimp? Put a couple of the spot prawns around the pasta. I think we'll give everyone 5. What do you say? I think that's a nice number. I like odd numbers. One more. And then I just push my pasta to the side, take my ladle, put some sauce on there, and then if you want to neaten up any of this, by all means go ahead. I don't think there's anything wrong with a little sauce around the fish like that. We don't need to get into analysis paralysis and get too plate wipey at home. But I happen to have some beautiful California sea urchin. The spot prawns and the sea urchin came to us courtesy of my friends at eFish, e-fish.com. And I don't think there's anything better or more luxurious than crowning each tower of pasta with some of their incredible sea urchin. I mean, I have it, so why not overdo it, right? And there is a perfect spot prawn pasta dish with a great sauce. Spot prawn on spot prawn on spot prawn. Can you do this with shrimp? You bet you can. Is it delicious? You bet it is. You just gotta get fresh ones with the heads on it. This pasta is literally as good as food gets. Why would I want to put the sea urchin on top? I mean, the snappy, wise-ass answer is because I happen to have had the sea urchin on hand. But the fact of the matter is that when you put sea urchin on top of hot pasta and it warms, it becomes like the bone marrow of the sea with better flavor and less fat. And the mouthfeel of that silky, delicious spot prawn reduction that we made is absolutely out of sight. I think this is the type of dish you just want to make over and over and over again. And simply tossing those spot prawns in the hot liquid at the end and then plating 30 seconds later, there's still just a hint of rawness in the middle. Couldn't be a better way to eat them. You can overcook spot prawns. Boom. You want to make this incredible shrimp salad with shaved mango and shaved cucumber with a fantastic jaunty dressing that's absolutely going to curl your toes? I know that you do. Stick around. I'm going to show you how in just a matter of seconds. All right, so here's one of those important things that I can teach anyone about seafood, which is how to actually peel and clean a shrimp. And I want you to watch very carefully because I'm going to do something called pee-weeing a shrimp. And Alzina Toops in Louisiana years ago saw me cleaning shrimp, and I took the top collar off and the tail here, and she said to me, "What is it with all you young cooks?" By the way, I was about 55 at the time. And she said, she was in her late 80s, early 90s, and she said, "You always talk about sustainability, but you don't leave the tail meat, the feather meat, attached to the shrimp." She says, not only is that more sustainable, obviously because you're using all of the shrimp, but it looks better too. And I was like, you know something, you're absolutely right. And ever since that day, I've pee-weed my shrimp all the time, full stop. So I'm gonna show you how to do it as well, okay? So here's what I want you to do. You just place your hands along the legs here, and you just sort of unfold that piece of shell. And then you do the same thing a little further up, and you unfold that piece of shell. And then you just make sure that you crack that top collar, this little piece of shell right at the top here, that last piece before you get to these little tail feathers. And what you do is you pee-wee them. You just one at a time, give them a little pull, and maybe I'll go down a second time, and you just gently pull, and the tail shell comes right off, right? All of it just comes right off. But look at this beautiful tail meat that's there. Do you see those pieces against my finger? Yes, Luca. Luca loves it when I clean shrimp. But isn't that nice? And then the rest of the shell, it just slides right off. Save your shells for making shrimp stock that eventually can become shrimp soup. And then what we're gonna do is we're going to cut these in half across-wise so that we have curls of shrimp. Makes it really easy to take out the vein. Now, I want to show you, I can do this in my hand. I don't want you to, but you know, we don't want to have to head over to the sink. But all I do is I just come down, I cut the shrimp in half lengthwise, and as you can see, there's 2 equal halves, but that vein that's right there, which is really not a vein at all, it's actually their digestive system, just comes right out, and you just pull it, and you can actually get 100% of that messy vein. Now, I like cooking with wild caught shrimp like these from a sustainable fishery, and that means there's real food in that vein that can turn your food bitter or off-tasting. And in some cases, maybe little crunchy bits of shell and other food in there. So super easy, and by doing that, I just get lots of halved pieces of shrimp like this that curl up in little spirals, and you'll see when I blanch them in water, which is all, it just takes 45 seconds to cook those half shrimp, even though they're from a large shrimp, you'll see how beautiful they look. So I've let the lemons cook in the water along with a teaspoon of salt for about 10-15 minutes so that lemon water is really strong. And then I take all of my shrimp that I've halved lengthwise and I drop them into the water. And then all I do is agitate them just a little bit, count to 20. So I've already got about 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I turn it off. And I let the shrimp just sit in that 210 degree water now that it's stopped boiling for 4 or 5 minutes. They'll cook all the way through very slowly. The slower you cook a shrimp, the more tender that shrimp is going to be when you eat it. And then we'll drain those. I will not refrigerate them. They'll go right into the salad warm. First thing I want to do is show you 2 ways to deal with these cucumbers. You can take a peeler. I prefer this European style one. And all you do is make strips of that cucumber. Super, super thin. And you do that until you reach the seed pod, because we don't want that seed pod in there. Don't be afraid. Remember, this is a plant. It's not perfect. Don't be afraid of that being irregular. I also like to use my slicer. Now, this food slicer makes slicing a breeze. And as you can see here, try to do one backwards. Do you see how that is coming out there? Look at that. Absolutely perfect. I don't recommend you doing it backwards. And then I do the other side. And then I may have to go back to my peeler for this inside of the curved part. By the way, I don't throw away this part of the cucumber, because if you sprinkle a little salt on it and eat it, it's a delicious snack. Delish. And then what I want to do is I want to peel this mango. Now, this mango is ripe, but it's not soft ripe. And there's a difference, and all you mango eaters know it. I actually like that this mango has a little bit of tartness to it. So just take the skin off. I like this European peeler for this because it just takes off the outermost layer of peel. And then I'm going to use
my vegetable slicer to get the rest of this off. Because what I want is I want strips of mango. And I can just keep going like this with my European peeler and create these beautiful soft sheets of mango in there. When you hit the stone in the middle of the mango, stop. And if you want to use the slicer, just be careful. Look at these beautiful pieces. All right, shallots. If you're using a slicer, don't look at the bowl, don't look at your fingers, look at the food, and then you won't cut yourself, because you can give yourself a really nasty cut. But look at how beautiful these shallots are in those paper thin rings. Next thing that I want to do is put some cilantro tops there. I've just trimmed these off the top of my bunch of cilantro. We're gonna make that look really pretty. I have some fresh mint that I just pulled from the garden. I'm gonna take these little tops and just stick those in there. I have a couple of them. With the larger leaves, I'm just gonna stack them and roll them and just make a little chiffonade cut of these. Cut them into thin, thin, thin ribbons. You can see here how beautiful those look. And I'm just gonna sprinkle those around. Cilantro and mint work so well together. If you do not like cilantro, try it with mint. Fresno pepper. I just want to cut some Fresno pepper rings out of my Fresno pepper. And I'm going to stop before I get to the seed pod. Sometimes these are hot, sometimes they're less hot. I generically find them to be less hot than a jalapeno, but you know. Then I'm going to add some Thai basil. You know, I'm a big fan of Thai basil. I just planted a ton in the garden. I'll show you this beautiful Thai basil. It's the most aromatic of all the basils. And I'm just gonna pull some leaves off the stems and sprinkle those around. By the way, I keep my Thai basil in a cup with water, like flowers. And I take a plastic bag. The one good thing these are for is covering herbs up and putting them in the fridge. Here we go with our shrimp. See how beautiful and curly they are because I have them lengthwise? So beautiful. They turn into like little corkscrews. You know, they are obviously the centerpiece. The smell of this with the basil and the fresh shrimp is just unbelievable. And now we move on to our dressing. I'm using this product, Colatura, which is Italian fish sauce. It's from Nettuno. I get it from Gustiamo, and it is absolutely fantastic. This is a very, very light dressing. I use Meyer lemon, kind of a cross between a lemon and a tangerine for this. About an equal amount. I'm gonna add just a little bit of sugar just to counterbalance the tartness of the lemon and the colatura. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic to this, 1 clove, and I'll probably not even use, I'll probably use half a clove in just really thin slices. And I'll let that sit for those slices for like 10 minutes in that dressing. So there's so much acid between the colatura, the sugar, the lemon, and the fish sauce. All of them are acids, and it's gonna break down that garlic. So you only need a little bit, and we'll get all that flavor in there. And I'm probably gonna do the same thing. I have a piece of ginger here that I'm just gonna clean up. It's the last of a knob of ginger. And I'm gonna cut that and make thin little sticks by stacking my slices. Make that a little bit easier for you to see. I'm just gonna stack my slices of ginger, just like playing cards, and then line them up and just slice them really thin the other way. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna put that into my dressing over here. I have my garlic chives. I'm gonna throw that in the dressing. I'm just gonna stir that up and let that sit for about 5-10 minutes, then we'll pull it all together. And last but not least, I'm gonna add maybe a half a teaspoon of liquid shiokoji, which is made from rice. It's like an umami punch. It's a little bit salty, but it's not soy sauce. It's made from rice, and it's the magic ingredient in most of Japanese cooking. And I'm just gonna drizzle like a half teaspoon in there just to wake this dressing up a little bit. Okay, I have 2 bowls here. I encourage you to put a portion down, and I'll just show you how easy and simple this really is. I love all the curves of this. Let's just get some of that mango in there. And it is okay for plates of this just to look slightly different for you. It should look random and elegant, and then all I do is drizzle liquid dressing over this and then shake a little bit of the solids over it. Here I'll do the opposite, maybe shake some solids over the top. That's that ginger and garlic chive, and then I just use my spoon. But how beautiful is that? Just elegant, stunning. Maybe, well, you know what? Let's make it a little more beautiful. Let's just make sure that you can see the seafood on top of each one. We can see everything else there. That's really stunning. And how does it taste? Luca wants some. He knows how good this is. Mango, cucumber, herbs, shrimp, spiked with chilies. Wow. I think I may eat both of these.